The only goal that matters for Auburn in 2025 is how many games can you win on the field?
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day, including, the first listen of the new year. Joining me is the Darrell Dapprich, Montgomery Radio Legends. We dap it up here on January 1st. We're talking about goals and things Auburn needs to accomplish in 2025, including for Auburn basketball. How far do they need to go for this season to be a success? Where does Auburn's offense need to rank amongst, their peers in the SEC? But Darrell, the bottom line is, how many games can Auburn win? And to me, that's what it comes down to. We can't excuse losses anymore with, we've got a good recruiting class, or, man, we had the number 1 or number 2 portal class. To me, and I think to most people, it's all about, can you win at least 8 games in 2025?
Yeah, it's funny. We did the Christmas show, which was a Christmas wish list. Yeah. This is a New Year's resolution show. What are the goals and resolutions that Auburn football needs to have? And I think you're absolutely right. The things that are deemed important, recruiting classes, portal classes, it's cause and effect. You need those building blocks to get where you want to go on the field. Yep. So those are important, but none of those matter, Zach. None of it matters. You've got to have proof of concept. And I think this roster is significantly better than last year's. Yeah. So you better show it on the field. And you're right. It's about the W's, and nothing matters, in my opinion, unless they win some games. And I have a number in mind, as do you.
Yeah, I think the goal needs to be 8-4 at worst. And I don't know if I'm predicting that to happen. I'm not to that point, but the path to Auburn winning 8 games needs to be there. And if you can't win 8 games with this roster, we've got to have some questions. There will be some questions that are thrown out there, or just at least look competent on offense. You're an offensive-minded head coach. That step from last year to this year, you can put it all on Peyton Thorne. You can put it all on your recruiting classes being young. That's fine. That's fine. I think everybody said, okay, whatever, one more time. So what do you do with all this pressure that's put on you? You go out and get Jackson Arnold. You go out and get the top 2 offensive tackles in the portal. You go and get the number 1 wide receiver in the portal, as well as another really solid wide receiver to help add depth. You go get Darrell Robinson to help bolster the running back room. Like, you've got the pieces on offense. I'm really not concerned about the defense. Like, we can talk about the defense if you want, but to me, you talk about goals in 2025, like, the offense has to look competent, because that's what you need to do to win games.
I think, too, what makes this more imperative and more just absolutely urgent is other teams around you with lesser talent, Zach, if we're being honest, got to 6 or 7 wins this year.
Totally.
So Auburn kind of felt like they were left out in the cold. I felt that way. I'm watching bowl games and I'm going, there ain't no way that if Oklahoma's in, if Arkansas's in, Auburn should be in a bowl game, and they should be at that threshold. In fact, they should exceed that threshold, to be perfectly honest with you. And they didn't. They underachieved. And so that's why this year is so important, because you've got the expectations because of what other people are doing around you. But I think you would agree with me that what you've done in the portal with Will Redmond, they got it right. They didn't last year as much. This year, they got it right. You mesh that with a top 5 recruiting class and a recruiting class last year that was stellar, that played a lot of freshmen, and you should have the perfect storm. If you don't, and it doesn't translate to wins on the field, then it's not a good fit, and you need to look elsewhere.
Yeah, so what are we doing at this point?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, internally, it was all about 2025. I think the schedule is manageable when you look at your home games. If you could find a way to beat Georgia or Bama, we'll see if that happens. But your home games being Ball State, South Alabama, Georgia, Missouri, Kentucky, Mercer, and Bama, like you should be in a good spot to win most of those games. And you've got some winnable games on the road. Auburn's done fine in Fayetteville as of late. And they should They should be able to beat Vanderbilt on the road. Couldn't beat them at home this past year, but I feel like they'll beat them on the road. And then, like, I'm not sold on Oklahoma, not super sold on Baylor. And so you've got the path of going 8-4 or better. But we also said that last year. I do think the roster is considerably better. But if you don't see like this vast improvement, and obviously the offense is going to help with that. But even if the offense is about the same from a production standpoint, but you win more games, like nobody's going to care. It's like, can you win more games? And that's what it all needs to come down to.
I think the last year argument, as I look back on it now, we can do the if, buts, and candy and nuts game all day long. But we knew that it was so front-loaded, that schedule, that if you didn't go at least 3-2 in those first 5 games, it was going to be hard to win 8. Auburn didn't. I am convinced that if that schedule would have been spread out a little bit, and Auburn could have played some more home games later in the year, like when they did against Texas A&M and ULM, and looked so much better. If they could have played Oklahoma or Arkansas later in the year at home instead of it being or spread it out a little bit, flip-flop some, I think it could have been a little bit better. I think they could have gotten to 6 or 7 wins. It was a death knell to know you couldn't get at least 3 out of those 5. And in my opinion, it was over when you went 2-3 to start out the first 5.
Yeah. And you've got a stretch of where you go to Oklahoma and to Texas A&M early, but then you've got stretches where you've got Georgia at home and Missouri at home. And then that's, I mean, you don't really have that brutal stretch outside of that one way or the other. And part of that also is you go to Baylor, your non-conference game is back on the road. So yeah, I agree with that. So the way this is laid out, you can split one of them and go 1-1 when you talk about at Oklahoma or at Texas A&M, like you're probably in a good spot, assuming you take care of business in Waco, which we'll learn more about Baylor over the course of the offseason. But you got to go 8-4 at worst. You have to. Or like, what's the point of being able to build this roster and pour all of this money? There is so much money in this roster. It's not Ohio State. It's not Oregon. But this is not a cheap roster.
Ohio State and Oregon's roster are playoff roster, so I wouldn't expect it to be, right? They're spending playoff money. They've won 12 games. Auburn's roster from a numerical standpoint and monetary standpoint is just below that. So that should equate to just below that in performance, in amount of wins on the field, i.e. 9 wins. That's what I'm saying. And I think this Oklahoma-Texas A&M back-to-back is interesting because of the Jackson Arnold factor. He's either going to go to Norman and show out and play really well because he's got something to prove, or what if he goes to Norman and he's a little tight, right? It's a little bit, means a little too much to him, the pressure. So one way or the other, we're going to find that out. I suspect he's going to ball out in Norman. I think it'll be, I'm going to show you type factor, and that could be enough to put Auburn over the top and get the split.
Yeah, I don't think Oklahoma has like transformed their roster as much as some people are making it out to be. Like, I don't think Oklahoma's in a great spot. So I'm with you. If I had to pick that game right now, I would say Auburn wins at Oklahoma, but we'll see. But yeah, the biggest thing today, like, sure, going into 2025, the 2026 recruiting class is already in a great spot. That's about to really, really ramp up over the next few months. And yes, that's important. But the number one goal this year is you have to find a way to win more football games. That's it. I think we're all in agreement there. Now, a big way you do that is the offense needs to be better. How much better does it need to be? That's next, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Darrell, you know this. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. And right now, new customers, you can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Hey, Auburn is the odds-on betting favorite at FanDuel to win the national championship in college basketball. What a time. What a time to be alive. So if you like those odds, they're slightly beating Duke, I believe. So be sure to give them some love over there. But FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of the NFL and, of course, the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Darrell Dapprich, Montgomery radio legend. You and I were texting before we sat down to record, and you brought up a great goal, and it's where Auburn's offense needs to rank among teams in the SEC.
Yeah, I think another New Year's resolution for Auburn needs to be their offense needs to be at least in the top 5 of the conference, top 5 total offense. And if you are an offensive-minded coach and you have some of the best receivers returning, and you've gone out and done what you've needed to do in the portal in the way of quarterback, offensive tackle, gotten 2 more receivers, I just think it needs to translate. I believe that there is we talked about cause and effect, and your points about recruiting classes and portal ratings and all that help lead that. So does having an efficient offense. It's my opinion that a byproduct of having an offense that's in the top 5 of the conference will automatically as long as the defense doesn't go to crap. Because I want to say this with the caveat that if the defense regresses and starts giving up 26, 27 points a game, well, then no, it's not an automatic slam dunk. But let's just say the defense holds serve and is similar to what they were last year. If Auburn can get in the top 5 scoring and total offense, I believe that translates to 8 or 9 wins.
Okay, yeah, I think you hit on it at the end there because this is just fascinating to me. And once again, like I go on other shows and I'm like, I really don't think Auburn's offense is as bad as
because I know where you're going. I know where you're going with this.
So the way, I don't know why this is the case, but this is the way stat people have decided this is when you talk about total offense, it's yards per game. That's right. What everybody's decided is most important. I think that's crap, but whatever. I think it should be about points because we're about to explain why. So as far as yards per game, Auburn was 6th. So when Darrell says, because I'm sure there are people that like spit out their morning coffee listening to this or whatever, and it's like Auburn's not going to be top 5 in offense. Well, according to like the main stat that people use to rank this, they were just outside of it with 429 yards per game. LSU was 5th at 431. Let me make sure I'm counting there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, they were 5th. So 2 yards per game better, and they would have had the 5th offense in the SEC by yards per game. That's how people do it. But when you talk about points, which is what matters, I think, but there's more factors that go into that. Like your defense helps with that, special teams help with that. So like I understand the yardage argument, but when you look at it by points, do you know where Auburn was?
I'm going to say 10th.
13th, even worse.
See, and you know the reason for that. It's not calculus. They moved the ball between the 20s. And when you talk about other things going into factors, defense, special teams, yes. But red zone was the number one reason Auburn's offensive output from a scoring average wasn't 6th and was 13th. Because once they
points per game, 12th, total points, 13th. I think one of the bowl game things threw that off. So they're 12th in scoring per game.
Still sucked. I mean, the bottom line is they moved it between the 20s, but you make your money getting points inside the 20 and not just field goals. And oh, by the way, they missed on opportunities on that too. You got to score when you're in the 5.
Though. Let's say they scored a field goal more per game.
Okay.
Which the way last year went, like, isn't the craziest thing? It's a little aggressive, but for the sake of the conversation, Auburn scored 27.8 points per game. If they would have gotten an extra field goal, so that would have put them at 30.8. Arkansas is at 30.9, so it would put them right behind them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They jumped to 8th.
And that jump of 4 spots probably would have equated to 2 more wins.
I was going to say 2 more wins, yeah.
So that's why I'm saying if you could get in the top 5 scoring offense, here's the resolution. I'm going to lay it out there, Zach. I'm going to give the goal. You got to write it down because if you want to lose weight during the new year, don't you say, this is how much I want to lose?
Sticky note, slap it on the mirror, baby.
People want to stop smoking, they slap it on the mirror. Okay, so here's the thing. They want to, whatever they want to do in 2025, they write it and proclaim it. So I'm proclaiming it. Auburn needs to get 435 yards of total offense and score 31 points a game. That needs to be their New Year's resolution for 2025.
Yeah, so 31 would have put them behind South Carolina's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That put them at 7th, so just outside the top 5. I also think some of these teams ahead of them will drop a little bit. So we'll see. Like, is Ole Miss going to be as prolific? We'll see. Is Alabama going to be as prolific? We'll see what happens with Texas. They're going to have some changes.
You break the 30-point barrier game and the 435-yard barrier per game, and I think you win at least 8 if the defense holds court.
Yeah. And I think they will. There's a few position groups where, like, you got to get some defensive linemen, but they've shown that they're going to be able to do that. So,
and oh, by the way,
yes,
there's a back door to this. Let's just to this resolution and it leading to Auburn getting 8 or 9 wins. So let's just say Auburn only improves slightly and they average 28 points a game instead of 27.
Okay.
And let's say their yardage holds firm at where it's at and it's 5th or 6th.
Okay.
What if Auburn's defense improves slightly as far as giving up points per game? Then that's also an avenue where you could get a couple more wins. I know we're focusing on the offense, but I'm saying as a plan B or as a default, if Durkin's defense gets better and gives up less points per game, Auburn could kind of get a little bit marginally better on offense, and that could equate or translate to a couple more wins too.
Auburn's defense was 7th in yards per game allowed and 8th in points per game allowed.
See, I think they can improve on that. I do. I don't think that's pie in the sky. What if both units?
And a lot of that, like, it's, can your offense put together more scoring drives, or, do you, when it comes to points, like, are you turning the ball over in not ideal situations? Like, there's a lot. That
or the flip side is the defense giving you the ball on the 25 or 30, which would help get you. Yes, which would help you get some more points as well. Yeah. I mean, there's reasons for both.
Look at what Michigan did to Alabama yesterday.
I mean, and kick field goals, didn't capitalize like they should have. If they would have scored touchdowns, that's not a game that's close late.
Yeah. I was wondering how we were going to bring that up. We found a way. To bring it up.
Yeah, we worked that in.
I think that's important. I think that's important for sure. Okay, how far does Auburn basketball need to go to capitalize on their historic start to the season? What should their New Year's resolution be? We share our thoughts next, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Game Time is the best place to buy tickets. Darrell, I was on the Game Time app earlier today, and I was looking at the biggest college basketball game this season, at least on paper right now. And what is it? January 25th, Tennessee comes to Auburn, and I've checked it the last few days. Those ticket prices keep going up and up and up. The best place to buy those, go ahead and do it, is at Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. You went to a basketball game earlier this week. I'm assuming, I should have asked this before, but I'm assuming you use Game Time.
I actually got those tickets comped, or I would have.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't mean to flex there. But hold on. I've got some great news.
Okay.
I'm going back home to my home roots in the spring, and I'm going back to Pittsburgh, and I'm going to see, for the first time in a long time, I'm going to a Pittsburgh Penguin hockey game, and I'm buying 4 seats, and I've already purchased them on Game Time.
How about that?
I found a lightning deal that was incredible in the mid-bowl, and I just said, I got to buy them now.
What sport do the Penguins play?
Hockey, NHL.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. So it's an in-season game? Hockey's playing right now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Had no idea. If you're into hockey, go to Game Time.
They have it. They're there.
Yep. Today, the guests, we're going to buy tickets with Game Time. Use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Darrell, what time is it?
It's game time.
Yes. All right, final few minutes of our first Locked On Auburn of the new year. Thank you so much for spending this day with us. We got to make it about Auburn basketball. So obviously they start conference play against Missouri on Saturday. Like, what should the goals be for this team? I think they're the best team in college basketball. Every analytic that you look at says so. Everything except for the AP poll would agree with us. And to me, I don't know if you should ever expect a national championship unless you've won several of them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a weird thing of, like, what should we expect? Because let's assume they keep doing what they're doing and they have one of the best regular seasons ever. And if they only make it to the Sweet 16, like, did we fail? Like, that doesn't feel like falling short to me. Like, what do you think the goal should be?
Well, first of all, the word of the year is going to be perspective. I'm going to put this in perspective. The expectation should be lofty. You should dream big. You should expect big things from this basketball team. And the reason why is you mentioned something in the FanDuel read that people need to. I know you don't want to compare. We don't want to compare football to basketball because of seasons and all that. But I'm going to make an analogy that I want people to grasp.
Okay.
If me and you would have done this show in October, halfway through the college football season, you could have pulled up the FanDuel odds for what football team was going to win the national title, and it would have been Oregon, Ohio State, Georgia. Where are they right now?
They're in the college football playoff.
Where is Auburn in the FanDuel odds? They're the number one team to win the national championship. So based on that type of thing, the expectations could get a little unrealistic because basketball is different, but you got a shot. And listen, I'm just telling you, Vegas doesn't have shiny new buildings because they're stupid and miss a lot. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing I would say is, to me, it's an Elite Eight performance. Elite Eight is what I think is how far people should expect this team to go. And if you think that, going to the Sweet 16 would be a disappointment, I wouldn't say it'd be a disappointment, but I think it wouldn't be what everyone would be satisfied with, like the 99 team that was really good at Auburn only got to the Sweet 16. Here's why I say that. Okay. If you want to have some perspective on this, Auburn basketball historically has been to 2 Elite Eights. That's it. 2. So it's not like it's a territory, it's familiar territory. So if you get to a 3rd, you're accomplishing something. But if there's ever a team that needs to meet the lofty expectations,
it's this one.
It's this one. It's the way it's built. It's the way the depth, the versatility, what I perceive to be. Look, I went to the game the other night. I was 10 rows up. The eyeball test of chemistry and how much this team loves each other and loves the game, you can't quantify that. You can't put – this team has the it factor. Yeah. You can click all the intangibles. And that's why I think the expectations shouldn't be too lofty.
Yeah. I would think an Elite Eight appearance, assuming you win the SEC regular season or SEC tournament, if you have a championship, and Janai Broom's the player of the year, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find like a better overall season in the history of the program. And
I'd rather win the regular season title this year, not just because Auburn won the conference tournament last year. I think when you go wire to wire and win, you can get hot like Auburn did last year in a tournament for 4 days and win it. If you go wire to wire, that's the true champion in that aspect. I think that bodes well for you to get into. Here's the other thing why I think it's different. I think Auburn's got really good guard play. And I think the years that Auburn underachieved, with Jabari Smith and Kessler year, they didn't have good guard play. They didn't have good guard play last year.
And they couldn't score at will.
Right.
And I feel like whether it's Tahad or Denver,
big game Tahad is going to be the difference. He shows up when the lights are the brightest, and the lights are the brightest in the NCAA tournament. So to project that, Denver Jones will get his 12 or 14 quietly in an NCAA tournament game. You'll be like,
library quiet, baby.
Library quiet. Tahad will announce his presence with authority in the NCAA tournament because that's what kind of player he is. So will Chad Baker-Mazara.
I agree.
So will Miles Kelly. Watch out. When that wrist heals and is 100%, I'm telling you now, buy stock in Miles Kelly because he is going to be one of Auburn's best 2 or 3 players in the second half of the season when conference play starts.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So, yeah, I mean, and this isn't us thinking like just an Elite Eight is okay. Like, no. I think this team can go to a Final Four. I think this team can compete for a national championship. Please don't mishear us. But as far as like what would be a success, I think that's kind of where we're at. But I think they're good enough to win the whole dang thing, and I hope they do. I hope they do. Hey, later today, dropping a show with Isaac Shade. He's the host of Locked On College Basketball, and we talk about this very thing. And we kind of preview the SEC play that's about to unfold starting this weekend. Darrell, how can people check out everything that you've got going on?
Follow me on X, DAP6410, Instagram, Darrell Dapp. I'm with you on Wednesdays and Fridays and then live after Auburn basketball games. And let me take this opportunity, looking back on 2024, to thank everybody for just making this show and the people that reach out social media, in person, and explain how much they enjoy it. It is so much appreciated, never taken for granted, and to wish all of you a very happy 2025.
Yep, 2024 was incredible. 2025, let's make it even better. Please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.